Welcome to Winning with the Burns, a podcast for highly ambitious people who have a burning desire to learn what it takes to win at a high level. All right, hey guys, thanks for joining us again today. I'm excited today for you guys to meet one of my good friends, Dr. Megan Jimenez. I'm gonna mess it up. I'm gonna call her Doc. A lot of times I just call her Dr. J. So hey, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Hey, so a lot of people here in LaGrange, they see you around and they're like, who's that little girl? She's got scrubs on. What does she do? This and that. So I want to get into, first of all, your career, because I'm really impressed with a lot of stuff that you do outside of your career. Like what you do is awesome, but even more so what you do outside of your job, your job, is really impressive, because I follow you on social media and I watch a lot of stuff that you do in life. And, to me, I feel like you're winning because you're doing what you want to do. So now tell us a little bit of background, where you grew up, where you went to college, and how did you find your career?
So I'm originally from New Jersey. My parents are from Cuba. They came to the United States. I'm first generation American, raised completely American. They wanted us, my brother and I, to be, American from the start, speak English, integrate. And so very grateful that my whole family came over from Cuba at that time. And I grew up in New Jersey. We moved a lot. I saw my dad kind of succeed throughout my life. He wanted to open his own business. So we went from, small little apartment in North Jersey, and then just slowly the family started moving south as my dad's company started succeeding. And so that was a really cool role model for me to see. And my mom worked her butt off too. She worked, for an insurance company. And so the two of them were working their tails off. And, I was going to school. Grandma was around, my great aunt. I had a lot of family around to help raise me with my parents, but they were working. They were working hard. And then, I got that bug, went to USC, University of Southern California, for undergrad, and then did 4 years there. That was amazing. Kind of cool because it was the furthest west I had ever been in my life without family. And did my 4 years there, came back, medical school in New Jersey at Rowan University, which is kind of by Philly. So I was around the Philly, Atlantic City, Delaware area doing my residency, or medical school and residency. And then I went to Washington University in St. Louis for a sports fellowship. And then Emory said, hey, we have this job. COVID hit. Emory offered me this great job. They said, it's in Georgia. I was like, I've never been to Georgia. I said, you know what? It's a great opportunity. Start a practice, lots of sports teams to cover. And that's how I got here.
Well, the good old Georgia Bulldogs brought you here, right?
Yeah. Oh, I'm a Trojan, so.
I see that. I see that.
Lots of college football here for sure.
So how did you land in sports medicine, being a orthopedic surgeon? Like because I guess when you go through medical school, you kind of like, you see everything and then you pick a path and that's the path you go down. What made you decide that path?
I've always been into athletics. So since I was young, I've done some kind of martial arts and dabbled in other little things here and there. I've always wanted to be, always preferred being out and about playing sports with my cousins and mostly hanging out with the boys, really. And so I didn't want dresses. I didn't want bows. And I think a lot of that is still similar today. I like to be in comfortable clothes. My mom always jokes that I became a surgeon so I could wear pajamas to work. And my outfits are very comfortable, and I get to go to work that way and I know exactly what I'm going to wear, so I don't have to worry about it. But being an athlete my whole life, it kind of funneled me into sports medicine more so. And I just needed to decide, did I want to operate or not? And that was kind of what I was going through a little bit in medical school. And once I got in the operating room, I just loved it. So I decided that route. And then treating athletes seemed like, as an athlete myself, it seemed like the best option for me and where I would have the most fulfilling of a job or of a career and be able to relate to patients.
What's funny is I think I've heard the story about how you started off in a tutu and a bow, being a ballerina, and you were like, this is not for me.
That was my mom. She wanted me to be a ballerina, be the girly girl, and I just would rip them off. And, we started in ballet and I was miserable. So they ended up taking me to karate school. I think it was the same building and it was just above or below the ballet school. And my family said, all right, just put her in karate. And I was like 5 when that happened.
So you were 5 when you started karate.
Mm-hmm.
And you wind up being a black belt pretty quick in karate.
Yeah, I was young, like 12 or 13. It's, the typical karate schools are, I don't think there's so much to create competitors, those karate schools when you're young. It's more to, teach you some discipline, show you respect. I guess it's almost sounds more militant, kind of, where,
Yeah.
teaches you just kind of when to stay in line, when to come out of line, and, respect people and get respect yourself. And that, I think, was a big thing for me.
So you think that that was a good foundation for your career, and because now you're in jujitsu as well.
Hmm.
I think, aren't you a black belt in that as well?
I'm a brown belt.
A brown
So the
belt. Okay.
next one will be black. Yep.
Okay. Well, so that taught you a lot of stuff on how to work, how to be disciplined, how to show up. To your point, how to respect. So
Yeah.
that was a great foundation at 5 years of age that you took into your career, and now I think every day you figure out a way how you can get better every day.
Yeah, and you're gonna have bad days. That's human nature. I have terrible days, and I think just all of that from karate, from everything from my parents, it's like, yep, you're gonna have bad days. You still have to show up, and even if you're not showing up 500%, or maybe you're not growing that day, you're still showing up and doing a small victory. Rather than just saying it's a terrible day, I'm gonna sit on my couch.
I think I heard a podcast a while back. A guy said that high performers don't have bad days. High performers have bad 15 minutes, because what they do is all right, I have a bad situation. They learn how to deal with it and they move on. So low performers have bad days, bad weeks, but to your point, you're going to have them. Crap's going to come your way, but you just learn how to deal with it.
Yeah, you figure out how to recuperate faster and faster. And still, even to this day, something happens that's not great, or a patient comes in with a complication. I take that to heart. And it used to be where I would do a day, 2 days of just like, head down, pouting around, trying to figure out what could have been different. And now it's a shorter window. It's like, okay, 20 minutes, get your stuff together and figure it out. And this is what we're going to do to move forward. And it's going to be great. It's going to be okay.
So I think it was the other year you decided to really self-develop and really take your personal life to a whole nother level. And you hired a life coach, someone who's got discipline in their life, someone who's already doing very well at what they're doing. You decided to hire a life coach. Why did you decide to, hey, I need some accountability in my life? What made you decide to do that?
So accountability, I discuss this with my life coach a bunch too. It comes from within, right? Nobody else is going to give you accountability. So if you're searching for some external source to give you accountability, it's not going to happen, because that's you. That's within. That's what you do behind closed doors that nobody sees. So that's a whole other topic. And I debate that a lot with my life coach, which is pretty funny. Or I guess we're on the same page now. We used to debate it, and now we're on the same page. So I think it was about 1.5 years ago now, that I was really in a bad place. On the surface level, I looked like I was crushing. Everybody, oh, that's Megan. She's an orthopedic surgeon in jiu-jitsu. Like you even said in the beginning of our talk, a badass, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, it looked that way, and it seemed like everything was great, but I wasn't sleeping. I was miserable. I was just kind of going through the motions of life, and I was almost hiding it with the gym. So I was in great shape because I was just hiding all those emotions, anything negative, pushing more at the gym. And I was like, this is healthy, right? Or wasn't. It really wasn't. And I did that for so many years, and especially in med school where you're just told exactly where to go, what to do, residency. It's not your life. So I had all these years of just, just grinding. And if I said I'm exhausted, or something's missing, or I don't feel like, you just feel bad. I would feel terrible because I would say to my mom, Mom, it's just, I don't feel like this is right for me. Or maybe I just need more. I want more. And she was like, don't be ungrateful. Like, you have a great life. And then it would just be more internal, that it was like,
Yeah.
Well, you ungrateful person, your parents gave you this great life. How could you feel that way? I did. Right. And how many of us do feel that way, even though we're like, oh yeah, I'm on top of the world. I've got a great life. I've got clothes. Like, I have a car. I sleep in a house. We're looking for more. I wanted more.
Mm-hmm.
And so I finally stopped kind of like talking to people close to me, because I was just feeling worse about myself and saying, this is terrible. Like, why do I feel this way when I shouldn't? Right. And so I was in a relationship, and it was a horrible relationship, poor communication. I met this guy, and he was saying all the right things. And growing up, I always thought success was a career, a husband, and kids, right? That's what we're taught.
Yeah.
And so And I might not have said that consciously, but subconsciously, that's what was going on in my head. And so I met this guy and he was saying the right things. He wanted a family. It's like, all right, I'm 33 already. It's time. I thought I was gonna have a kid by 25 and married like my parents. And so I went deep in, and he just did not treat me the way that I was giving back into the relationship. It was a one-way street. And then he left for work and I didn't hear from him. And so I went into just a spiral, and nothing was bringing me joy in life. Again, not sleeping. And I had nothing left. I tried to go to therapy, and it's like a crying session. So it didn't seem to help me. And maybe it was something I could use in the future. At the time, though, I just felt like I wasn't going anywhere with it. So my friend said, I have this life coach. Why don't you try him out? It's like, I have nothing to lose. That's literally what I said. And I got on the call with the life coach. I was like, you're the last option I have. I don't know what else to do. And he was like, yeah, that happens a lot. He's like, I wish people would find me earlier. I was like, I didn't even know you existed. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so he just helped me. We did hours and hours of work on me. Right. And just overcoming a lot of different things in my head, a lot of subconscious thoughts I had about myself, about relationships. And finally, I realized success isn't those things, right? Success is what I want it to be. And so I ended up breaking up with this guy finally. And then I was in Las Vegas when I broke up with him. And I said, that's it. We're done. Like, it's over. And then 2 months in the future was going to be Worlds in Vegas. And so I had been wanting to compete for a while. I said, I'm going to come back here and I'm going to, get my redemption, and I'm going to win Worlds. Like, I'm not just going to compete. I'm going to win. And that was it. And then I just, came over that relationship and started training and started putting my head where it needed to be, and sleeping and all of the things kind of, I worked really hard, but everything started to fall into line. And I credit my life coach a lot. I tell him, I'm the hero of my story, and every hero has a guide, has a coach. Just like winning Worlds 2 months later, there wasn't just me. Yes, I was the hero, but I had my coaches. I had my nutritionist. And so I have people in every area of my life just helping me do better. And my life coach is kind of like the guy on the top orchestrating it all and making sure that we all stay in line.
Well, it's nothing great has ever been accomplished without a team.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many people out there that you look at, to your point, you win the world and, oh, look at what she did. But there was so much bigger team behind that got you there. And, you talk about how everything was surface level. And I think a lot of people struggle with that, is I've got to put on this front like everything's good. Everything's good. And then you go home, you don't sleep, and you just kind of shelf what really the root of things that are really bothering you. And I guess what he did, he brought out how you deal with that. And earlier we were talking about discipline and different stuff like that. So talk a little bit about leading up to that training, because you went into hardcore mode. And what I mean by that is, we didn't see a lot of you. When I say, because we're used to seeing you hanging out, whether you're at the football game, sewing into the community, you're doing all kind of stuff. We didn't see a lot of you because you were focused on something.
Yep. So I put blinders on. Like, if I have a goal, I'm going to get it, no matter what it takes. So my goal was to win Worlds, right? It wasn't just to show up and be there. And so I had to get a good nutrition plan. I had to cut some weight. I had to make sure my training was on point. I still worked. So it was like, okay, what do I need to do to make sure I go to work, fulfill my patient requirement, or my patient, make sure that they feel needed or feel like I'm there for them in addition to training. Because I couldn't just say, oh, I'm not going to work, right?
Yeah.
I enjoy what I do, and I enjoy treating patients. So I was still going to office, and then I really honed in on my schedule and said, okay, where will I have the most benefit of training jujitsu versus lifting versus hot yoga, versus maybe I need a recovery day. I would do physical therapy. I would do massages and all the things that I needed to recover so I could keep training. And so I kind of realized I didn't need a million hours on the mat, because that's not really possible. And then you get hurt a little, you get more injuries. So I created a schedule for the 2 months, and I stuck with it. And I, when it popped up on my calendar, I was like, okay, right now I have to go do this, or I get to go do this. I choose to go train today. And I wasn't, no drinking. My diet was really on point, and I felt great.
Yeah. That's something that you were specific about. And the mindset when you say, I get to do this.
Right.
I don't have to do this.
Right.
Because so many people show up and say, I have to go to work. Well, when you say that, then it's just misery.
Well, athletes do it too. I have to go to practice today.
Yeah.
Like, all right, so don't go. What's going to happen if you don't go? Well, I won't play. Do you care? Is that important to you? And if they say no, then okay, then don't go to practice, right? Find something that's important to you.
Yeah. Well, you said we were talking earlier right before we started filming about people if they have something to work towards. Like you had something you were working towards, so you were put your blinders on, you focus, and you were specific. You didn't say I'm just going to go try to win. You said I am going to win.
Mm-hmm.
And you do a lot of recovery stuff. You do a lot of visualization. I think you do a lot of writing on your mirror about
I do have some of that.
your
Yep.
goals and stuff like that. So talk about how that life coach has really kind of, because it was all, yes, it was them encouraging you, but at the end of the day, you still had to go show up and go perform. You still had to be intentional about what you were going to do.
And I think, again, that has to do with what my goal was and how that was important to me. Like if you said, oh, I'm going to go win a world championship in jiu-jitsu, but you don't like jiu-jitsu, then you're not going to go train. You're not going to have that in your heart. Like it's not going to be a desire, right? So you have to find what you love to do, and not because your parents tell you to do it or not because your best friend's doing it. It's because it has to be something that you deeply want to put out into the world or succeed in. Because if you don't have that, then you've already lost the battle.
Yeah, you can't fake passion.
No.
If you're passionate about something, you'll figure out a way. Like you said earlier, if you have a why,
Mm-hmm.
the how really don't matter. If you have a why and where you want to go, you'll figure the how out to get to that why.
Yep. And that's something my life coach really instilled. It's like, okay, what is your why? What is your purpose? And it goes into every facet of life, not just jiu-jitsu, not just work. It just bleeds into everything I do.
Yeah, and your why changes along the way. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have that why to train for world now because that's over with. So now your why evolves, so to speak.
Yeah, or it could be a broad why that you can kind of hone into each different kind of facet of life.
Yeah. Now, when you talk about recovery, you're big on cold water therapy.
Yeah.
And I was talking to you. I'm like, I've heard this thing. I think it was last summer we were talking. So I've heard about this. Give me the doctor's approach of why it's good for your body. Like, why is a cold plunge good?
Well, and it's not good for everyone. So I have to always kind of put that out there. I do have people or friends with like Raynaud's or different things where you have poor circulation to your extremities. So you might not want to do it then. And if you do it with or heart conditions, right? Because getting into a tank of cold really can set off your heart, your blood pressure. There's a lot of things it does to your circulation, right? Bringing all the blood away from your extremities, it stays close.
There's the doctor disclaimer, by the way. Like, don't go do this because I do it.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I don't want anybody to, you could die, right? You hear about people in different parts of the world where they're freezing, they fall into the ice.
That's right.
Right? So it's deliberate cold exposure, right? Meaning you do it, it's an option, it's intentional, and it's controlled. I didn't just get into a 30-degree ice tank my first time for 10 minutes. And I still don't do 10 minutes because that's a long time, right? Yeah. So I started with cold showers, right? And I would just do like my arms. Like the first week or two, I just did my arms and my legs. So I was like, sucks. This is really miserable. And my life coach, actually, he's the one that got me into it. He was like, just try these cold showers. You might like it. And I was like, I'm not going to like that. I like the heat. I'd rather go to like an island and just sit in a bathing suit and be sweating. And he goes, just try it. So 2 weeks, arms, legs. And I would not go in. Like I would not go put my chest in. I would only just, like my butt was sticking out. I wouldn't put anything else in. And he was like, what is stopping you? And I was like, just the thought that it's going to suck.
So it was a mental barrier at that moment.
That's it. And he's like, okay. He's like, did you hear yourself? I was like, you're right. I'm going to do it. And so then I went in and I did it just 20 seconds, right? Spinning. And I came out and I was just like.
Panting.
No, I was so excited. It was just like this rush of energy that came through. And it's the morning, right? It's like 6 o'clock in the morning. And so it felt better than a coffee. I just felt like I could go just like destroy something. I wanted to go out and just start doing things. And so I slowly brought up the tolerance to, a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes over probably months, right? And so then I was doing 3 minutes. And then the summer hit and the water in the pipe goes warm, even when you turn it cold.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, this isn't doing anything, right? Because that feeling, that resilience that it builds mentally, because for you to have to turn the faucet to the right and get in it, that takes a lot of willpower, right? That takes a lot of mental resilience that you're like, I'm going into this thing that is terrible on purpose, right? And the goal of it is I use it predominantly for mental strength. There's a lot of other benefits, but mentally, just going into it is like, okay, I can do hard things. I can do things that suck. And coming out of it, how awesome I feel after mentally because I did it. And I usually say to myself, that's the hardest thing you'll do today. And then bring it on, world, right? I can go do anything today. And of course, things happen, you know. And I just think that it's building that strength that when stress hits in life and you don't have, there's no intentionality about that. There's no deliberate, you know, stress coming into your body or into your, I guess, atmosphere. It just happens in life. And so I deal with it a lot differently now after my cold exposure practice with all the things I do. And I think the cold exposure is something that has really like calmed me. And instead of reacting to stimuli or stress, I respond to it now. I stop, take a breath. Okay, what's the worst that happens here? And I can, you know, I still get upset. My heart rate races and all those things. Now the way that I go about it is different. And I think the ice has a lot to do with that. So after the cold showers and it got warm, I said, I need a tank. And so my friend makes tanks. And so I was like, can I get one? And so I had that in my backyard. And I dropped it slow. You know, I started at like in the 40s, like 46, 47. And I'd only go in for like 30 seconds. Drop my neck, come out. And it's a very slow process. You want to get your body used to it. And now I do like 2 to 3 minutes a couple times a week. And I'm at about 38, 36 degrees. And so it's kind of cool because I can still keep dropping it. You can change the temperature. You can change the time. So it's always something kind of new instead of like I've been doing it about a year now and it still sucks, right? It's still very challenging. I don't just say, oh, it's time for cold, jump in. Like sometimes I'll take an hour to get in there trying to convince myself out of it.
You have to talk yourself into it.
It's tough. And that's part of the resilience that I'm building for myself. So inflammatory benefits, right? So if I go have a hard lift day, I get in that tub, you know, leg day, I used to get so sore. Like 2 days later, I couldn't even walk up steps. And now I can go lift again in 2 days. I think a lot of that is due to the ice and just recovery. Some people argue that you need inflammation to grow your muscles. And so, yeah, I think there's not enough research around it, but potentially if you're trying to go for a show and you do a figure or you're a power lifter and you need that like small percentage, then maybe don't go on ice right away because you need that hypertrophy. You need that inflammation to build your muscles. But for me, I need to train again. Like I want to train again. So I need the recovery, the decreased inflammation. There's a lot of research behind cardiovascular health. So decreasing blood pressure, decreasing your resting heart rate variability. So there's a lot of really cool research out there geared around the ice and the cold. People sleep better too if you do it at the right time. If you do it at night, that experience that I explained to you, where it's like you come out and you just want to go like crush some things, and it's better than coffee. I don't cold plunge at night.
You don't do it at night.
I don't
do
do
it
it
in the
at
morning
night.
to wake you up. Yeah.
Or even midday. Like if I go have a good workout in the afternoon, around 4 o'clock, maybe I'll, you know, sometimes I wrestle with one of the high schools, and I'll come home from wrestling because those kids beat me up, and I'm like, I need a recovery, so I'll ice bath, and then I can still sleep pretty well that night as long as it's not too late. Heat is better kind of for the night. Like nighttime is for hot baths, sauna, Epsom salt baths, warm showers, and then you go to bed.
I listened to a guy and he said he does the cold in the morning and then he'll take a warm, hot shower at night because what it does, it relaxes his body, puts him in a state to where he actually gets better sleep by doing it that way.
It also, when you go to sleep, your body temperature has to drop a couple of degrees, like 1 to 3 degrees for you to fall into sleep. So if you ever notice if your house is too hot, you might wake up in the middle of the night sweating, or, you know, because your temperature then rises as you're about to wake. I've heard like Dr. Huberman say about 2 hours before you wake is about when your temperature starts to come up. And then that kind of signals to your body to start, you know, to wake up. So I sleep with my house super cold because I don't want to wake up in the middle of the night unless, you know, I have to go to the bathroom, whatever. But sometimes I'll wake up sweating, and it's because you want that temperature down. So actually by taking a hot bath at night, you would think, oh, I took a hot bath, so that's going to raise my temperature. But it actually, your core is saying, oh my God, we're hot, let's cool down. And so it actually cools you down. And in the morning, the cold shower, opposite. Your body's like, oh God, we're really cold. Let's heat ourselves up. So that's kind of the science behind it.
Yeah, well, I sleep with my house very cold too. My kids, I'm like, look, you can go put on more clothes. You know,
You can always bundle up.
Yep. Put on a toboggan, grab a quilt, do something.
Yep.
So now you also do a lot of meal prep. You're
Yep.
into, you know, you're into really, I don't want to say self-medicating. I don't really know what the term is, but you're not the typical doctor that's like, oh, my toe hurts. Hey, let me write you a prescription. You're not really into that. You're more into, all right, let's listen to our body and let's try to fix our body in the natural sense, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the, I think a lot of the orthopedic and really medical stuff. But since I'm in orthopedics, a lot of orthopedic ailments can be cured just by how we eat, viewing sunlight, normal things that our ancestors did. That now it's everybody's. I heard a statistic today that was 90% of our time is spent indoors in Western civilization. Like 90%. That's insane, right? People, I mean, I know people that go from their house to their car to work to maybe to the gym to home, right? And you're not seeing any sunlight. And if you are, it's just going from activity to activity. And so, unless you have a dog, right? So I'm very lucky. I have a dog, and we get out in sunlight and all this, and just easy things like drinking water. Increasing water intake. It's amazing how many people. I had a patient yesterday that came in, and I was like, "All right, how's your water?" And hip pain for 5 years. Okay, this has nothing to do with an injury. This is a chronic thing. It's inflammation. How are we going to take care of this? And I started, you smoke? Pack a day. Do you drink water? No. What do you drink? Diet Coke, a gallon a day. It's like, all right. So there's a lot of things that we can talk about here. And she left my office with no medicines. She left my office, physical therapy. I'm very liberal with that because I think it's just not just to get your body active and moving, but it's also social, right? And a lot of patients, they sit at home all day, and they have injuries, they have medications, they're sick, and so it gets them out. And so therapy, we made a deal, for every cup of Diet Coke, a cup of water. And so just starting them out basic like that, and she's probably going to feel great in within 2 weeks, just from, not fully better. It's just slow. It's a slow progression. So, I mean, every patient that comes into my office, what's your nutrition like? What's your sleep like? Are you working out? Are you raising your heart rate? And a lot of these things are no's. And water. Nobody drinks water. And not all water is the same, right? If you just take it from the sink, if you look at if you just Google pipes, and you're going to see these pipes with just char and they're rusted. And that's the pipes feeding our water to our bodies. And our bodies are 60% water, give or take. And so that's the water you're drinking, that's what your body's going to be functioning like.
Yeah. Well, there's a common theme with you is it starts with your mind, starts with mental. And, even though you're in great physical shape, you always train your mind. You're doing something on your mind to get better. And it starts with you. It's like a lot of people out there, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to get better. And it starts with you. It starts with how you think. Because if you think differently, then you'll go out and perform better. Or at least you feel like you'll perform better.
Yep.
Because it's all about mental approach.
It is. Everything is. Everything is your mind telling you can or can't do something.
Yeah. What's I saying? Whether you think you can or you can't. You're right.
You're right. Henry Ford.
Yep. So what encouragement would you give to somebody who's maybe they want to get into, weightlifting. They want to get into the gym, or they just don't know where to start. To your point, with you compromise with that patient. Drink a cup, drink water. You drink Coke, drink water. So if somebody, because it can be an uphill battle. If somebody, I want to train for a marathon, but I've never ran a mile.
Yeah.
Is like, okay, well, you got to make an action plan. So what encouragement would you give somebody that's wanting to do something, they want to change, but they just don't know where to start? What would you tell them to start with?
Well, we're very fortunate with the internet, right? You can go and Google, how to run a marathon, and you'll see all these videos. You can get on Instagram, and you can start looking up people that have, just find people that have done it. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. It's just, okay. Even when I was going to train for Worlds, I hadn't competed in 7 years, and I just said, all right, I don't even know where to start. I've got this idea, though. This is what my goal is. So I started talking to people that have gone to Worlds, people that competed a lot. What did you do? And then you can kind of pick from things. And then I'm lucky enough that I was able to hire a nutritionist, get coaches for different facets. Training. I was training specifically for jiu-jitsu, lifting for jiu-jitsu. Hot yoga was part of my, the flexibility routine. And so books are a great resource. They're cheap, right? I'm sure there's books on how to run a marathon. I'm sure you can Google anything, and then you can start finding the people that have succeeded and try to see what they did to succeed and emulate them, right? And everybody's different, right? So you do a little bit. You're gonna kind of do a couple more things that are specific for you, but you can take tidbits from each person and then make it your own. And that's what I did.
I think when Tom Brady won the Super Bowl with the Buccaneers, the owners were getting the trophy, and they were speaking at the ceremony, and they said, "Our Father taught us one thing: is if you want to go somewhere, you find someone who's been there, so they can show you the way." And we wanted to win a Super Bowl, so we went and bought. We went.
That's right.
We went and found Tom Brady, and he delivered. So find someone in that career that's been there.
Yep.
And to your point, take a little bit and find what works for you, because I think a lot of people lack the dedication, because they get in, and whenever you start a different routine, no matter what it is, it's tough. Like really the first day, like you're excited, you're geeked up, you get that adrenaline going, and then all of a sudden that adrenaline kind of fades down and you're like, okay, this sucks. Now I got to embrace the suck.
Well, but that's also what we talked about in the beginning. If you don't have a purpose, if you're just saying I'm going to go arbitrarily run a mile every day, with what goal, with what aim goal? So, if I've done it too. I'll get up and I'll be like, I want to start running this week, and it'll last, 2 weeks, and be like, meh, I don't really have anything. It's not really improving my jiu-jitsu game. It's not. There's no goal. There's no purpose for it. So you only have a finite time. So if something's not serving you or it doesn't help your overall goal, you might not do it anymore, right? So I would say the biggest thing is figuring out what your goal is in life, or goals, what your purpose is in life. And then that's going to be pushing you forward when your motivation might not be there that day, or you might be a little bit tired that day. Like there were days that my alarm would go off at 4:30 because I had to get a double workout that day and I had a full clinic day. So I was like, all right, I'm lifting in the morning, and at night I've got jiu-jitsu. And my alarm would go off at 4:30, and I'm exhausted. Like I got back from hot yoga at 9 o'clock last night. I'm tired. And it was like, oh yeah, my goal is to win worlds. Out of bed, let's go.
Yeah. You had to remind yourself.
Had to remind myself.
This is why.
Yep. Because otherwise I would have hit snooze and gone right back to bed. Why am I doing this? Am I just doing it just to go to the gym, just to say I went to the gym? That might not be a big motivator. Probably not.
Yeah.
Right? It was like, and even if, or, telling your friends you're going to meet them there, that might help you temporarily. In the end of the day or the end of the year, what's your goal? Is it to lose whatever amount of weight? Okay, then you're going to get your butt to the gym.
That's right. All about purpose.
Yep.
So I tell you one thing, I really enjoyed you being on here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So thank you again.